welcome back to BRMC Healthy Connections. I'm your host, Tobias Pugsley, and today, two very special guests. Randy, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So Randy, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on over at the hospital with pastoral care? We may have some audience members out there that are not aware of all the great things that we do from a pastoral perspective, so maybe you can help fill in the gaps for us.
All right, I sure will. Well, I'm Director of Pastoral Care, and at the hospital we're very concerned with not only physical care but spiritual care, and so I oversee that program. Most departments have paid hospital employees that work in the programs. Pastoral care, we use volunteers. And so folks here in the community, they go through our volunteer program. Becky Rose runs that, and she does such a great job, and she identifies volunteers that might be good in pastoral care. And she lets me know who they are, and we bring them on board, and they come into my program and go through my orientation and my preparatory work. And then when they're ready, we put them on the floor. Since I've been at BRMC in April, I came on board as Director of Pastoral Care, kind of had a goal of, my little saying is to have every patient on every floor visited every day by a lay chaplain.
Wow, that's
so
a pretty lofty goal for all the patients over there.
But it's come along quite well. I think we've got 17 volunteers, wow. And so they come in once or twice a week, and they're assigned a floor. They get the census of the patients, and then they make their rounds throughout that floor, and they drop in, and their main objective, their main goal is to just introduce themselves as a lay chaplain in the pastoral care department and just see how they're feeling. You know, the patients, they're a little overwhelmed. We all are when we find ourselves admitted into the hospital, but they appreciate having a visit from somebody that's not going to administer some sort of care to them in regard to poking and prodding and all those things.
They're probably relieved to see you.
They are. They're very happy to see us, actually, to just have a conversation and see how they are spiritually and see if they have any needs. It's, like I said, it's overwhelming to be in the hospital. And so we want to make sure that they're tended to spiritually. If they've got concerns, obviously they're anxious about things, and maybe prognoses aren't as good as what they would hope, and we find ourselves needing to be reminded that there is a greater power that oversees us and cares for us and loves us, and so I and my staff, we get to bring that good news.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must be a tremendously humbling experience sometimes when people are, it's not like you're trying to force feed things to them. I may just need to talk to somebody as a patient, and exactly. You provide that ability, exactly. That shoulder to lean on, so to speak.
My main goals, my main job at the hospital obviously is first patient care, but I also oversee spiritual care for our employees. The hospital has just shy of 1,600 employees in the whole system, and we try to offer spiritual care to them as well. A lot of times someone finds themselves in the hospital, and if they have a church home, if they're connected with a church, their pastors are contacted, and they offer that care that they need. But so often, a lot of our folks aren't connected with a church home, and so that's where we come in and offer that spiritual care for them. And it's humbling, and we get such a blessing every day.
Yes, we do.
When we visit these folks and hear their concerns and get to pray with them if they so choose. And it's a wonderful, wonderful job.
Excellent. Now, you said earlier that a lot of your program is built off of the volunteers. If I'm at home right now and I'm watching this, and perhaps I'm not a volunteer, what could I do maybe to start taking those first steps to do that?
Thank you for bringing that up, Tobias. Like I said, all of the pastoral care volunteers, our lay chaplains is what we call them. They go through our volunteer services first, and so they would contact the hospital and ask for Becky Rose volunteer services, and they're given an application, and they fill that out, and then they visit with Becky, and then they go through hospital orientation. Every volunteer, every employee goes through hospital orientation. They'll do that, and then they are identified as someone who would like to work in pastoral care. And then they come up and see me and go through my program, and then we assign them a floor. We have basically 5 units within the hospital that pastoral care oversees. And we find the floor, the wing that best suits them and works out for their schedule. And we'll place them on that floor, get them introduced to the hospital staff, the nurses, and then they'll start visiting patients. But if you're interested in the program, you can call me at my number at the hospital, and that's 508-7750, and that brings you straight to pastoral care to my office. Or you can just call the hospital and ask for volunteer services, and Becky will direct them to me.
Excellent. And you don't have to be a former pastor or any kind of professional training, do you? It can
you
just somebody maybe that with a higher calling that feels like they want to do some good. And
yeah. And we do have several pastors here in the community that volunteer some time, but the majority of our lay pastors or our lay chaplains are just folks who have a passion for being with patients and want to tend to their spiritual care.
Well, it's such a good program to be involved with, and like you said, you've been here since April. So, what are some of the things that you've seen, and maybe some things that you might be potentially looking to roll out in the future? Anything like that you can talk to us about?
Sure. I've been a pastor here in Mountain Home for 15 years, and came on in April as director of pastoral care, the chaplain at the hospital. And like I said, patient care is our number one thing. So often patients don't have a church home, and it allows us to integrate the gospel, the love of Jesus Christ to them if they would like to pursue that. And it's a great opportunity for me and my staff to be with patients who are searching for those things. Offering spiritual care to the employees is also, like I said, a big part of the job. And we've got a chapel at the hospital. It's a beautiful facility. It's a beautiful space that's very reverent and allows people, both patients and employees, to come and have some quiet time. And we're going to offer some programs for folks. Eventually, we'll probably start a worship service. It may not be on Sunday mornings, but sometime, probably over a weekend, we'll offer a worship service. We're going to offer communion to anyone who would like to receive Holy Communion, probably once a month, things like that. But just being that counseling entity for the employees is something that we're really actively pursuing.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And talk to me a little bit about, I'm sure you spend a lot of time with the patients, but do you spend much time with the patient's family? Is there ever any need for you all to be involved on that level?
And that's a big part of it. A lot of times the patients come in, and especially the patients who find themselves in ICU for whatever reason. So there's family members who can only spend a little bit of time, in ICU, and so they find themselves in the waiting rooms. And we've all been there, unfortunately, and when you're in the waiting room, it's a little anxious. It's an anxious time. And so spending time with family, listening to their concerns, being with them, offering prayer is a big part of the job, and it's really rewarding because no one likes to be in those waiting rooms. It's tough. And so yeah, a lot of family time. And then, of course, patients having surgery. The families in the waiting room, and they love to get updates, and our staff does such a great job. Our hospital does a great job of keeping families abreast of what's going on in the operating room, and I get to be a part of that. A lot of times I get to offer that information to them, and they really do appreciate it.
Randy, do you feel like we're blessed to live in the area that we live in to be able to provide these services? I know in the bigger cities you may not get a lot of these type services that are available, even walking around visiting with the patients. What would you say about that?
I think the biggest blessing to the people of the Twin Lakes area, southern Missouri, and you know, the counties here in Arkansas that we service. Having Baxter Regional is such a blessing, in that you know, we're a great hospital, and a well-needed hospital. We're independently owned, and it allows us to offer the care that you would get in a larger city, and without traveling so far. And Baxter Regional is quite a blessing to this area.
I would agree, and I hope all the people out there would agree with us too, that you know, we're blessed to live in this area where those types of services are available.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be visiting more with Michael and Randy about the great things in pastoral care going on over at Baxter Regional.